Welcome to the Planet B podcast, where truth, transformation, and faith converge. Join us as we flip the script on ecological despair, guided by Dr. Sailesh Rao's vision for a compassionate, rewilded vegan world. Let's begin the journey to the greatest transformation in human history.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 23. The title of today's episode is Busting the Protein Myth. Dr. Rao, I know you're ready to bust this myth.
Yeah, it's a myth that's central to the system on planet A, because it's the myth that makes everybody go and exploit animals and thereby prop up the system that's all about growth, growth, growth. So I begin this chapter with a quote by C.S. Lewis, who said that a myth is a lie that conveys the truth.
Now that is a true statement right there.
So it conveys the truth. The truth is that, yes, animal bodies do have protein. But the lie that's conveyed is that animal bodies are the only foods that have protein. The animal protein is the most complete protein. Animal protein is the superior protein. And all these are myths that have been propagated through the education system. In reality, it's simply not true.
Right, and that goes right into your foundational myth and foundational truth. So right at the beginning of this chapter, you highlight the foundational myth on planet A. Protein is only found in animal foods, and the foundational truth in planet B is all plant foods have all amino acids and have complete protein.
Correct. Yeah. Because even the protein efficacy tests that people run, and these are all rigged to make it look like animal protein is the superior protein. So you choose a test that's all about muscle growth. Okay. But muscles aren't the only things that we need to replace in day-to-day activity. Unless you are a buff who is always, trying to grow muscles, that's not the only thing you're growing. If you look at the normal cells you have to grow back, it's intestinal cells are the first cells that die really fast. And for that, the optimum food are plant foods. So they have the right protein composition for that. But again, the body recycles all the protein that dies from the dying cells. So it's not clear why you should be eating just animal protein, right? But they rig the test to make it look like that's the optimum protein they need to be eating.
So that's how they rig the test based on just muscle growth. But what you're
Correct.
saying is actually the most important protein is within our intestines.
You have to look at which cells are being replaced. And the cells that die fast are the ones in the intestines. Protein cells don't die that fast. There are other cells that die much, much faster. So basically, protein is found in every cell in our body. And as cells die out, and we are constantly recycling our body cells, right? As cells die out, you need to have protein in the food to replace that. Now, the body also has this fantastic mechanism for recycling the protein. It breaks it all down to the constituent amino acids, and then it figures out how to make new cells. So when you look at the mechanism, it's so amazing how the body functions. You realize how they rig the test to make it look like only muscle cells have to be replaced. Okay. And when you make that the test, animals' protein is definitely better because animal muscles are what we are eating. And animal muscles are very, very close to our muscles. You might as well be eating, our muscles. Right?
It's kind of gross, honestly.
It is, yeah. But that's the reason why it's better, right? In those tests. There's so much work that's been done, and I listed all that in the chapter, talking about what happens when you eat animal foods. Because it's not just the protein you're ingesting, you're ingesting all these other things. So it's like the protein, is part of a combination in which, you're getting all these other things that you don't want. Dr. Willett's quote is very important there. He said, to the metabolic systems engaged in protein production and repair, It's immaterial whether amino acids come from animal or plant protein. However, protein is not consumed in isolation. Instead, it's packaged with a host of other nutrients. So he said, pick the best protein packages by emphasizing plant sources of protein rather than animal sources. Because there are so many other compounds like insulin growth factor 1, IGF-1, that comes with animal protein. And that is not good for you. I'm reminded of Dr. Milton Mills. He said, drinking dairy in order to get nutrients is like inhaling cigarette smoke in order to get oxygen.
And we're going to talk a lot more about that in the next episode for sure. How does it differ, Dr. Rao, when protein is packaged in animal meats versus how protein is packaged and consumed in plant-based foods?
Yeah, there are these other compounds you have to look at that come with the animal foods, like IGF-1 and sulfur-containing amino acids are in higher concentrations in animal foods. They induce a state of acidosis, and that causes our body to leach calcium from our bones. So there are consistent studies that show that those who consume a lot of dairy and consume a lot of animal protein in general have more bone fractures because of this property. Because
Wow.
the animal protein composition is not optimum composition. It's optimum if you are a jock who's building muscle. But most people who are sitting on the sofa or something, in the ordinary people, this is not the optimum protein you should be consuming. It also causes TMAO. So TMAO is a compound produced when gut bacteria metabolize nutrients found in animal foods like carnitine and choline. These are types of amino acids, right? This is the excess sulfur-containing amino acids. And high levels of TMAO will increase cholesterol plaques in our blood vessels and basically lead to heart disease. And Dr. Kim Williams said, the fact that animal proteins cause TMAO is reason enough to avoid them like the plague. Plant proteins don't have high levels of sulfur-containing amino acids. But if you look at the amino acid profile, the ideal amino acid profile in the tests, it's closely related to animal protein. Why? Because they want to make it look like meat is the best protein.
So they even modify that. They even modify the amino acid tests, the amino acid profile to manipulate people into eating animal foods.
Correct. It's
Wow.
basically based on the same efficacy tests, which are all about measuring muscle growth. But if you are growing muscles and you want to grow muscles using plants, you can do that too. You just have to eat a lot of plants together. So you get a variety of amino acids. So mixing, rice and legumes, for instance, will be good for muscle growth. In general, we get so much protein in our food. Like in general, we know that the average American is eating 2 to 3 times as much protein as they really need. And 1/3 the fiber that they need. And that deficiency in fiber is responsible for all the diseases, the chronic diseases that people have in America. So it's responsible for obesity, because what happens when you don't take enough fiber in your food is that fiber has no calories, but it fills up your stomach. So our body says you're done with eating when your stomach is full. Now, if you're filling up your body, your stomach, with foods that don't have any fiber, you're going to eat a lot more calories for the same volume of food. Okay? And if you don't use those calories, then the body takes all the excess fat that it didn't burn and stores it for future.
Wow.
It's a mechanism that body has for making sure that you can get through a famine. When a famine happens, then you can burn all your excess fat. And fat is normally rare to get in food. This is why the body is looking for fat and accumulating it. So this mechanism, by eating foods that are low in fiber, and animal foods have zero fiber, there's no fiber in animal foods. By eating foods that have no fiber, you are loading up on calories when your stomach is full. And so all the excess fat that's in the food gets stored. So you will see incidence of obesity increasing in countries that eat a lot more animal foods. So it's proportional to that. Those who eat a lot more plants will be eating a lot of fiber along with the food that they're eating, and therefore they'll be consuming less calories as their stomach gets filled.
So the animal-based foods and the protein in them is not packaged with that necessary fiber, but the
No,
plant-based foods has that fiber. And Dr. Rao, isn't fiber really important for our digestive system as well and how we like release toxins out of our body?
absolutely. Fiber is important for gut health.
Mhm.
So it feeds the gut bacteria. Gut bacteria then multiply and then they are able to digest the rest of the food. So fiber is essential for human well-being. And the fact that 95% of Americans are deficient in fiber, it's an indictment of the entire system when 95% of people are deficient in a macronutrient. The government does nothing about it. So that shows you that it's systemic, that they really want us people to get sick so that they can feed us pharmaceuticals and grow the drug industry. That's what it looks like to me.
When you put it that way, how could it be any other way besides a systematic?
Right. So the TMAO production is one, which is the trimethylamine N oxide. That's one reason why you shouldn't be eating animal foods. The other reason is that animal foods contain high levels of phosphorus. And when we consume high levels of phosphorus, our bodies normalize it with a hormone called fibroblast growth factor 23, FGF23. I got this from studying work from medical doctors. So it's Dr. Varsha Shah. She's a pediatrician and lifestyle consultant in India. And she sent me all this information of their analysis of why you should not be eating animal foods. So FGF23 has been found to be harmful to our blood vessels and is associated with heart attacks, sudden death, and heart failure.
Oh, geez.
So those who eat a lot of animal foods are prone to more heart disease because of that. And there is also no need to obsess about proteins in our food because, like, look at animals that eat plants. They don't go around measuring protein in their food. They just eat the food and they grow, right? Some of
Right.
the biggest on earth, they're all plant-eating animals. And they get enough protein by eating plants. So we can also get enough protein by eating just plants. And this is why Americans in general are eating 2 to 3 times as much protein as they really need. Okay? Because there is plenty of protein in food. So if you eat enough calories on a natural diet, you will get enough protein. This is what Dr. McDougall has written in his website when he calls it the deadly dietary deception number one, is the protein myth. So he's pointing out that this is not a nutrient of concern at all, so long as you get enough calories. Of course, it's a nutrient of concern if you're not eating enough food. So for the 800, 900 million people who are going hungry, you're going to get protein deficiency there because they're not eating enough food. You should be much more concerned about getting enough fiber, getting enough micronutrients, and all of those are found in abundance in plant foods.
Right. Could you talk about the impact of the antibiotics and the hormones that are being consumed
Yeah.
in this animal protein as well?
Yeah, basically, when you grow animals together in large quantities, so this is factory farmed animals, they're prone to get diseases because they're touching each other all the time, right? It's like, if you are in a crowd and one person has flu, it spreads, you know.
Right.
So how do you avoid that? Well, you feed them antibiotics as part of their food. That's what the system is. So the antibiotics are constantly fed to these animals as part of their food. And when you eat that, you're going to ingest the same antibiotics. Your body is going to build resistance to the antibiotics, which means when you get sick, the hospital is not able to treat you. Second is all the hormones they feed the animals in order to make them grow fast. So these are growth hormones that we feed animals, because how else are you going to get a chicken to grow to that kind of weight, like 67 pounds in 6 weeks? And when you do that, you're ingesting the same hormones in your body, and that causes inflammation in our bodies, because it's basically wanting our body also to grow really fast. And we already finished growing. So you'll get inflammation and, increase in cancer growth, and all that will happen because of the excess hormones you're ingesting. That's another one. And that's part of the farming process itself. You see, they're adding antibiotics in the food, and the hormones are in the food. But there is also all the other chemical pollution that is there in the food that you're giving to the animals. And the animals are storing the chemical pollution in their bodies. We take the crop residues and feed it to animals. And what are crop residues? Well, that's where the plant has filtered out the chemical pollution and stored it in the stalks, so that it tried to create pure water for the grain. So all the chemical pollution is in the stalks. And now when you feed that to the animals, they're going to ingest that and store it in their bodies. So you get a factor of 10 to 100 increase in pollution when you eat animal foods compared to plant foods. That wasn't there in the past. That is
Right.
making animal foods increasingly unhealthy as time progresses, because every year you are adding another 220 billion tons of toxic chemicals into the environment. So that compounds what was there in the water before. And also think about the water. Are we giving these animals filtered water to drink?
No.
No. They're drinking whatever is there in the ground, and that is highly contaminated. We wouldn't drink it, but we let the animals drink it, and then we eat the animals, which means you're going to get a compounded version of the pollutants in the water that the animal was drinking. You'll get that multiplied and in your food when you eat the
Right.
animal foods. So all of these have to be taken into account when we consider the protein myth. Because the objective of the protein myth is to convince you to eat animals. Because without eating animals, the entire growth model collapses. Because you won't grow the diabetes industry, you won't grow the healthcare industry, and you won't grow the animal agriculture industry itself, unless everybody is convinced they have to eat the animals.
This chapter, honestly, I feel is one of the most important chapters of the book because it's just something that people are so unaware of. And could you share some of sadly, the grotesque things that are fed to the animals? Because they're not just eating plants or, pellets, and they're not even just getting antibiotics and hormones.
Right, yeah. Previously, they used to take all the waste from the animals. That includes the body parts that cannot be processed into any product, right? Like the brains, sexual organs, and things like that. They would just grind that up and turn that into protein meal. So it becomes this pink slime from which you get different food substances. They even make, some human foods out of that. But
Jeez.
mostly it goes back into feeding the animals. And that became a source of diseases in animals initially. So when they found that feeding cows back to cows led to mad cow disease, then the industry separated it out. So now the rendering industry takes the remains of cows and turns that into protein meal for pigs and chickens. They take the remains of chickens and pigs and turns it into protein meal for cows. So, and these meals have to be fed to make those animals grow fast, or even to produce milk at high quantities. You're feeding the animals these protein meals. And there's a big dispute going on now between US and India over vegetarian versus non-vegetarian cows. India claims that the cows in the US are non-vegetarian because they're eating all these other protein meals, whereas they claim that the cows in India are all vegetarian. Basically, the product that comes out of the animals is still contaminated, because whether they're eating plants or animals, and of course, if they eat other animals, they're no longer herbivores. they're really carnivores at this point, then that means that the toxins in their body is going to go up by another notch.
It's human-induced cannibalism.
Cannibalism. And it's also, think about it. For us also, it is not good. Our food system is not meant to maintain our health. Our food system is meant to farm us for the industry. We don't think too much, right? When you're told in school that protein comes from animal foods, we buy that, because we trust the science teachers who tell us that. We then continue the rest of our lives almost mindlessly eating what we've been told is the right thing to eat. When you start looking at the data, you realize this is not the right food to be eating for human beings.
Right.
So the protein myth gets busted, because again, all plant foods have all 20 amino acids, both essential and non-essential, and therefore have complete protein. Yeah. All these efficacy tests that point out that some protein, some amino acids is deficient is all based on muscle growth. For muscle growth, of course, you have to eat other muscles.
Right.
And closer the muscles are to your own muscles, the better off you are. Now, for muscle growth also, you can eat a combination of plant proteins to get that muscle growth to happen. Because protein is never stored in our body. Any excess protein is excreted. So the kidney is the one that does all the job of taking all the excess protein from the body and excreting it.
Many people who transition to the vegan diet, these are a couple questions that they ask. So number one is a vegan diet suitable for children, adults, and the elderly?
Association of Dietetics and Nutrition, I think it's called, issued an update. They'd already said, in 2010, that a well-planned vegan diet is suitable for all ages and all stages of human life, from pregnancy to infancy to teenage life to adult and to elderly. Okay. And they issued it again in 2025, clarifying that it is appropriate for all stages of human life. It has to be well planned. So meaning if you do a monoculture diet of eating exactly one thing over and over and over, you're going to be deficient in other things. But that's not what we normally eat. In fact, the food that our ancestors had prescribed for us, the combination of rice and lentils, if you look at the traditional recipes, they're all designed to make sure that you have a complement of all nutritions that you need, so that you get a complete meal out of it. Okay? So this is not that hard. We already know how to do this because it is there in our culture. It's just that we got educated out of it. And then
Right.
we're told to go eat these fast foods and things that really make us sick.
Dr. Rao, you have such a great saying that I love, and it's very simple. It's just eat the rainbow.
It's not just the rainbow of the eyes, but it's also a rainbow of the taste. So we were told to eat a little bit of even bitter food once in a while, so to get all the nutrients you need. Yeah, so we make food with bitter gourd and eat it on a regular basis, but not necessarily every day. So all the tastes should be there in your food.
Dr. Rao, have you ever met a vegan with protein deficiency?
We are the species that needs the least protein compared to every other mammal on the planet. How do we know that? You look at mother's milk for human beings, and it has 6% protein by calories. And it's only when you're an infant that you need the most protein, because that's when you're growing the fastest. And that's what nature designed for us, 6% of calories in protein, okay, as the perfect food for human beings. We are the mammal that grows the slowest compared to every other mammal. Because
Right.
even mice have to grow faster. Rats have to grow faster than us. So all of the milk will have more protein in calories by percentage. So if you consider the rate at which we grow compared to, say, the cow, right? We grow from baby to adult in 18 years. The calf grows from baby to adult in 18 months. And the cow is 5 times our size, which means that fluid that the cow is giving her baby is designed to make our body grow 50 to 60 times faster than it ever needs to grow. So this is why casein, which is the protein found in cow's milk, is one of the strongest carcinogens known to man. Dr. Colin Campbell said if you didn't label it as casein, and if you just measured that as a substance and you evaluated it, you would say that is the worst carcinogen. And only because it's cow's milk, it's labeled as food. So all the experiments that he did in his lab, he was using casein as the animal protein to show how animal food cause cancer.
You end chapter 23 with the quote, "Plant foods are the real high-quality foods that we should be eating for optimal health. This is part of the protein myth busting that needs to be taught to everyone on planet B."
Correct. Yeah, everyone needs to know that the packaging of protein is very important and the composition of protein is very important. So the packaging of protein that comes with plants, it comes with fiber, comes with the right kinds of fats. It comes with the least amount of toxins. That's the kind of protein you should be eating. Whereas the packaging of protein in animal foods, it comes with no fiber. It comes with hormones, comes with antibiotics, comes with chemical pollution, comes with saturated fat. All of these things you don't want in your food. So that packaging is the worst. So plant foods are the real high quality foods when it comes to protein. We need to teach children how to do, rational thinking on their own.
Yeah, very beautiful. Dr. Rao, as always, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. You put it in such a simple way that everyone can understand, and the information that you're bringing forth is just so eye-opening. So I just say thank you for that. Is there anything that you'd like to share as we close out episode 23?
This is the unveiling of deceptions, of myths that we have been taught, and just seeing the reality as it is. So thank you for joining us in this journey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Thank you so much to the audience as well. We hope you enjoyed this episode 23, Busting the Protein Myth. And the next one is just as fascinating, if not more fascinating, because episode 24 is Overcoming the Dairy Deception. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
This has been a podcast from Planet B, where the same humans live in truer systems. If you haven't moved here yet, we thank you for visiting.